Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Snapshot, episode 71. I'm Brendan Patrick, joined always by Marvel Snap Phenom, Cam Best. Cam, your week in Marvel Snap, sir.
It's been pretty good. I've been playing a lot more, I think, than usual, because I've been trying to be like making sure that I stream like 4 times a week reasonably, right? And that has come with a little bit of schedule flexibility. But in so doing, I've sort of re-immersed myself in Snap and like, you know, what is good right now. And now that it's not all Thanos, everything is so much more fun. So in light of that, I'm at like rank 16 right now. Mm-hmm. I've been playing a lot. I'm at like rank 16 right now, and I'm pretty happy with that. That's like it's a cool number. No, but it's not a bad number to be at, right? There's nothing wrong with 16 unless you're Drake.
Okay, so what's the 16 correlation with Drake? Because I tuned in. Underage women is the correlation. So it's a swath of numbers that it could be then. Okay.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some people who are like, "What the fuck is he talking about?"
I don't even think that's true anymore. I think everyone has heard about this.
Yeah. So I guess if you're older, or maybe
you don't even need to explain it. It's fine. They know.
Some diss tracks with like Drake and some other people.
Kendrick Lamar. Some other. Wow.
I don't know to what extent the references make sense, and it's like when we talk about Flesh and Blood, I keep it.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. All right,
trust me on this one. But
and much like Flesh and Blood, I am coming at this from the perspective of a hater. I hate this guy, right? So much like you with Flesh and Blood, I am coming at this from that perspective.
Okay. So you don't like it when that hotline blinks?
I do not like it when that hotline blinks.
I like it when the hotline blinks. Okay, well, speaking of that, we got Valentina 2/3 on reveal. Add a random 6-cost card to your hand. Give it -2 cost and -3 power. How did it land?
I think it landed pretty well. I've been playing a lot of Valentina decks. Like, I don't know if she's... It's so weird, right? Because, like, I don't know if she's busted or anything, but, like, in the Loki-less Loki deck, she's awesome because you're playing all the cards that mitigate her downsides, like Luke Cage, and invest in her upsides, like Quinjet. And then in normal Loki, I do actually think she's the best too. But I don't know exactly how far that goes necessarily. Like, I do think she is probably the best too, but I don't know if she's like worth getting just for that. I don't think these are the only kind of decks you can play. And frankly, they're the only decks you can play with her. And I think there are probably going to be higher investment or better investment opportunities in the future than Valentina. But I haven't been sad to own her. I will say that.
Well, Loki-less Loki, also which you referred to as hate bears in Marvel Snap. Let me read out the list. That's going to be
or Noki, if you will.
I mean Noki. That sounds like the I get
the pasta. Yes, but
Okay. Kitty Pryde, Quinjet, Snowguard, Angela, the Collector, Jeff, U.S. Agent, Valentina, Elsa Bloodstone, Mobius, Agent Coulson, Luke Cage.
So. Funny story. Jeff Hoagland made this deck, and he was like, I'm just messing around. I'm just fooling around. I don't want to play Loki for my Valentina spotlight, so I'm going to do everything but play Loki. And when I started playing this deck, and Woody started playing this deck, and Tanjo started playing this deck, he showed up in my chat, and he was like, I can't believe I got you guys to play this garbage, right? Here's the thing. It's not garbage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It is not garbage. It is somehow actually good in ways I genuinely cannot figure out, but it consistently is winning games for me. And it's just like, wait, what is going on? How strong is the Loki core that you can cut the theoretical best card from the deck and just be like, yeah, I've got a 65% win rate in Top Infinite. That seems solid to me. And that's ridiculous, right? That's just like a fundamentally ridiculous thing to have or be, or like, Jesus, how messed up is Angela? Is I think the real takeaway from this, right?
Like, be careful. We gotta let her stay around for a little bit.
My win rate with this deck over 87 games is 62.9%.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good. It's not bad. It's pretty good.
My favorite part about this being a Jeff Hoagland deck is that KM did a Twitter post of this deck, and he was like, here's this deck. It's actually pretty good. Hate bears and Marvel Snap. And then he writes in the second post, so, Twitter, you have to break it up a bit. And he goes, by the way, this is a Jeff Hoagland deck. And I was just like, I read like 3 or 4 comments are like, hey, buddy, this is a Jeff Hoagland deck, by the way.
Yeah, no, I responded to one of them, which was like, this is a Jeff deck, right? And I was like, yes, read the thread. Like, I'm sorry, I can't fit everything in the first tweet because I refuse to pay for this asshole's fucking Twitter premium bullshit. I'm not doing it. And frankly, I think Jeff himself would support that because fuck that guy. Fuck Elon Musk. I'm not about that, right?
What's the etymology of hate bears? What does that mean?
It comes from magic terminology where a hate bear is like bears in Magic are 2/2s for like two mana, right? And so a hate bear is a 2/2 for 2 mana that has a beneficial effect for you or a negative effect for your opponent, especially stapled onto it. Gaddock Teague is sort of the like exactly what people think about. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a 2/2. Like most of the Thalias are hate bears. They're 2/1s. But like that, the general conception of it is like 2-drop, taxes your opponent, prevents them from doing stuff, and then you beat them to death before they can actually do the stuff their deck wants to do.
And if you put enough of those in a deck, it actually makes up one. I think one of Magic's best named decks, which is Death and Taxes. I always thought that was such a badass name. Fuck playing that deck, but yeah. Such a cool name. Yeah. Popular legacy deck at one point, a modern deck. I don't know if it was ever a standard, but they call everything Death and Tax. I mean, you could have a standard version of Death and Taxes. It tends to be that you only have like this critical minimum of hate bears.
Critical mass.
Yes, in legacy or modern or vintage or something like that. But yeah, that is what hate bears are. And I mean, you have that in this deck with things like the Luke Cage, the Mobius. And just like all these little 2-drops and 1-drops and 3-drops. So it's cool. It's kind of funny that there's actually a question we have in our Ben Snap, which is like, oh, what archetype from another card game would you wish made it into Snap? And we'll dig into that. But it's cool to see almost by accident that get created in Marvel Snap and for it to be successful too.
I mean, I don't know if I would say by accident, but the interesting thing I think about this deck is it's such a small margin deck, and you are so good at dealing with locations. That like, yes, sometimes you are doing something unfair, like playing a Magneto on turn 3 or whatever, right? Like sometimes you're doing things that are legitimately unfair and that's good, right? But also there's these games where you're just like doing fair stuff. And then what wins you the game is, you know, Luke Cage on a quantum tunnel, Luke Cage on a negative zone, Mobius on a dream dimension. Like, you just have a lot of weird ways to win stuff. Snowguard, Jeff, like just a lot of ways to make locations one-sided in this deck that I think is, if I had to guess the key behind why it's actually been successful, it's that. And it's also just, it has a lot of redundancy in terms of big points cards. Because it's not just Angela like some other decks. It is Angela and the Collector and US Agent, right? And that's like basically you're running 3 2/8s or 2/7 2/8s, right? Like that's what's going on there. And so you don't have these games where it's like, I didn't drew Angela. I guess I don't really have points in any of my lanes. And that is the redundancy and the ability to like scam out lanes with effects is, I think, what does this.
What do you think the short-term future is of this deck? Do you think that there could be a meta response that will maybe push this deck out of the format? Or do you think it's going to be pretty comfy being a top-performing deck?
I think there's tons of stuff that could push this deck out of the format. I'm not even positive of that by my results that are indicative of anything. I could just be good at the game, right?
Maybe. Possible. I mean, it's possible. Let's be real.
But if we're talking about meta responses, I mean, there's some stuff happening that is happening on Tuesday that we need to talk about that's going to be way more impactful than any of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, it's exciting to see the new archetype represented. I mean, you took it to rank 16, like you said. No small feat.
Up about 150 SP with it over the past few days.
Yeah. There was one thing that happened in the news, but it is one other thing that happened in the news. But it's actually been a Snap question, so we'll leave it till then. So we're going to head into our Ben and Snap section as our listener question section. If you want to get your question read out in next week's podcast, use a comment on YouTube. And maybe don't make it a my favorite fucking something. Jesus Christ, we have so many of those. Like there's over 100 this time. We do appreciate the engagement nonetheless, and some of them are pretty fun. Anyway.
We don't like any of your comments, but they make us money. So like actually keep doing them, please. That's what you just said, Brandon.
Very small amounts of money. Money for ants. Money for ants. What is this? Money for ants? All right. First one is from Wild Speaker, which is a wildly off-topic question, but I figure I'd have to answer it because we do talk about this game a lot. It says, does Flesh and Blood exist outside the USA? I'm from South America, and it's a card game I've heard a lot about. I'm interested. The only thing is I knew about it was that it's only a physical game. I'm pretty sure they are in Brazil, and it's also a digital game, but it's just not supported by the publisher. You can find on Talishar. Just Google that and you'll be good. But yeah, just clear it out for anybody listening. Pretty sure it's in Brazil, but if it's not, it's an online game. Next one, Beta Ray Bill Lover. That's such a good name.
Very specific.
Yep. This man knows what he likes. I honestly don't mind no changes, but I've defended the avatars for gold, the $100 bundles, and even the emotes. But I'm mad about this 900 gold for one border for a single card. That seems so insanely greedy to me. But apparently, I'm in the minority because Reddit tore me to shreds and called me trash of the game. Yeah, that's actually the first time it's happened on Reddit. You're pretty unlucky with that one.
I don't think Reddit's ever said mean things to anyone before.
All right, sure, they should monetize cosmetics, but if you do that to the card acquisition the card acquisition should be better, which isn't the case. I don't know, maybe I'm way off base. Definitely agree. Weird people being overly negative, though, and I'm not trying to be toxic with my scrutiny of microtransactions in Marvel Snap. I want the game to be affordable and fun for everybody. What are your thoughts on the borders?
I don't give a shit. Yeah, you think I'm buying any of those? Are you fucking kidding me? They're like they designed something that's like specifically for that I can never have, right? Because I have all my borders matching so that if I ever make a deck, it all matches. And so in order to have those new borders, I would have to buy those new borders for every card in the entire game. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely not a thing I can reasonably do. And so they are a product that I cannot ever consume. I cannot even come close to consuming. I'm walled off from them. Now, if we're talking about what this question is, I got to say, reading between the lines of this question, I read it as, what happened there was they defended all the stuff that they didn't care about, that didn't impact them. But then something came out that they actually wanted, and they were like, yo, this is fucked up. That is how I read that question.
How dare you extract money from me?
I am fairly sympathetic to them doing whatever they have to do on the cosmetic side. I do get that people are like, why are they doing all this to the cosmetic side and not making things cheaper? I've got a horrifying suggestion for you. What if the making things cheaper already happened and now they're just clawing it back? What if Spotlight, because like here's something that I've been thinking about recently with Spotlights, right? We got Red Hulk and White Widow to the top 5 most played cards in top 50% infinite, right? They're talking like 25-30% of decks, which means there are more people who own those cards that are not playing them in every single deck they have, right? So we could say that like a bunch of people got those cards. What does that mean? What does it mean that suddenly everyone, like, there's no lag now? I don't know if people remember this. People used to be like, you couldn't really tell how good a new card was because like
the series drops.
You have to wait for the series drops and do all that shit. And like now everyone has them. And if you spend a reasonable amount, and I mean like I don't know, $50 a month, which, you might be like, that's not a reasonable amount. How dare you, you fucking piece of shit whale.
It's unreal. So I think for the level in which a lot of people engage with this game, that it is unreasonable. But I think if you're playing it a lot, maybe.
Right. So like where I'm going with that though is like, I have not dropped below 23 keys in ever. Ever. I have not done it. And I get that I would have I one-tapped Valentina, right? Like I one-tapped Valentina. So like that just makes up for every bit of bad luck I could possibly get, just one-tapping once, right? And so part of me wonders like, people are like, oh, they need to make acquisition cheaper. I think maybe they did make acquisition cheaper, just not in a way that feels good.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest L possible. Right?
Yes, like I think they actually like, oh yeah, acquisition is just like way cheaper. It just feels like shit.
I mean, you literally, it couldn't be any worse for them. For me, like,
it's like the exact opposite of what you want to do. What you want to do is make it expensive, but people feel like they should do it.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about it earlier because I was picking out questions for the Bend to Snap section. I was like, I think I'm just going to stop picking monetization questions because like it's really just the same thing. And it's like the same answer. It's like, I mean, the only thing that's different is, okay, maybe the new system is cheaper. Maybe it is it is more friendly to free to play players, or players that are spending a small amount, players actually completing missions. But I think ultimately, when it comes to like the overarching, this almost it's almost thing that has its own power, the monetization of Marvel Snap per se. It's just not gonna be what people want it to be. I don't think, ever. I think that I
think it could be, here's the thing though. I think it could be better than this, but what I'm afraid of is that let's assume I'm right? Yeah. Because I'm a genius, right? I'm never wrong about anything.
Range 16. I mean, that you can swing that.
But let's assume I'm right about that, and they end up reworking the economy again. What I'm kind of wondering is if people do math and they're like, this is actually less generous, right? Because it'll be it's less generous, but it'll feel better to spend. And if they do math and it ends up being less generous, people are going to lose their goddamn minds, right?
Yeah, bro. There's no... I mean, I say there's no way.
How do you get out of this situation if you're second dinner?
I don't know. Find a way to not churn through $100 million a year as a fucking publisher. I don't know. They're making money, but... I feel like whatever their margin is, whatever they're trying to hit is... It seems
it's too high.
It just seems grossly high. It just seems like we're heavily monetized at this point. So,
yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Again, I just don't know. Because one of the things I try to think about is what would you want the economy to look like?
I can tell you. Sure. I would like there to be a catalog and go buy the fucking cards. I just go buy.
Okay,
them.
What if they give you that, but they're insanely expensive?
Well, see, now that there's a problem with that. While I might be somewhat okay with it, I think that, depending on the price, I think that is the worst way that they could trick people into spending money, because it's very on the nose, right? People are going to look at it and they can, because I think a lot of Marvel Snap is actually obfuscating the cost of a card.
Yes.
So one of the problems is when they released those bundles and it was 6,000 tokens for $100, you're like, holy shit, a card costs $100, and people get all pissed. Yep. So if there was a catalog that was let's say it was reasonable, let's say it was $50 a card. Yeah, that would probably be a lot. That'd be a lot.
Yeah, there's no way they could ever do that. You can't put the actual number on the card because people lose their minds because they're insanely expensive on an individual basis because you can earn them for free, right? When people that's the other side of this that people never talk about, right? You can earn this for free. So it actually costs $0 if you're willing to just save up your stuff and do your quests. So you could get it for free. So is it actually $50 or is it actually $0? I don't know. That's the other thing that I think about all the time is there is this so odd. It's such an odd system, and it doesn't feel congruent in any real way. And I obviously am at the top end of it and benefiting from it, right? If you have just a bunch of resources saved up, well, good news. You do some battle pass spending and play a bunch of Snap and maybe buy one cool bundle for a variant every month. And honestly, you're probably going to have every card forever. Long as you get even halfway lucky on your clicks on that thing. And you're not going to get punished the way people who don't have every card are. Because one of the things I think about is they set up a system where, because of the way you have to roll on it, it's supposed to drain more from the people who have every card, right? How, when you think about how you want a system to be set up, I think in an ideal world, what they do is the more cards you have, the more they charge you. But since they can't actually do that, what they've done is put a floor on it and say, even though you're only missing one card in here, you still have to gamble, right?
Yeah.
And contra that, or maybe not contra that, maybe I'm using that word wrong, but alongside that, there's this thing where it's the system is designed to, I think, disproportionately hurt people who have almost all the cards, right? Because if you don't have almost all the cards, you're getting way good value. You're opening three cards you don't have for cashes. It's insane. It's the dopest shit ever, right? But those people end up getting hurt on the back end, because when they miss a card, they never have a chance to get it for 5 fucking months. And so a system that is built in theory to punish the people who are almost collection complete is instead not doing that because of that issue. And I am struck by that. It's it does feel like I'm sort of skating. I should be I have 25, I think, keys and 60,000 tokens, and they can't get them out of me. Like, they can't get them out of me. And I get every new card. They can't get them out of me. And it's like, that seems like an issue, no? And so borders and stuff is aimed at people like me. That's what the point of it is. It's for people like me to have something to do with this crap so they can start bleeding me a little bit more.
Yeah. My high level analysis is like, the system just sounds kind of dumb, but I would love to know if it's working or not. Because it, like you said, like the system is one massive pain point for players on the lower end, the higher end, like everywhere. Because I think like when we switched over to spotlight caches, it's just the gambling. I guess it makes people, they get dopamine for one tapping, but I feel like more people are having a bad experience from not one tapping it, and then they get all pissed off, and it feels like a bad. I'm so interested to know if things are working out for them.
I would love to know as well.
I would love to.
I don't think we ever will.
Yeah, well, 5-10 years, like, someone will do a retrospective video down the rabbit hole. Marvel Snap monetization.
Oh, yeah. yeah.
We'll figure it out. All right, next one is from Jaren. They say, Ben and Snap, with the rise of Pixie decks, are 5 drops the new 6 drops?
I don't think that has much to do with the rise of Pixie decks, and I think it has more to do with the relative power of 5 drops. Mm-hmm. So, like, specifically the dynamics that led to this were 6 drops were everywhere when everything was a Hope Summers deck, because Hope doesn't work well with 5s. But every Hope Summers deck gets absolutely shit canned by Loki. Just taken out behind the woodshed. And Mobius beats Loki, and Mobius goes with Pixie, and the best things to do with Pixie are Annihilus things, so you end up at 5s, Professor X, things like that. It's a contextual answer. I'm sorry that's not the answer you wanted, but that is the actual answer to why we've gone from 6 drops to 5 drops. It's just the stuff those 5 drops are doing is valuable to the specific decks that they're in. There's no 6 drop Annihilus, right? There's no 6 drop Cannonball. Those are 5 drops, and that's like, if they were 6 drops, you'd probably be playing those.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, because I feel like, it's a good answer, because in the context of this podcast, I'm sure there was a podcast we could have titled like the power of 6 drops like a month ago or 2 months ago or something like that. We were talking about the power of 6 drops over 5 drops, like why 5 drops are just not played. It's cool to see that inverted a bit.
I mean, like, credit to the Marvel Snap team. This meta has been moving. There has been just a ton of shit you can play consistently. I lost to Cerebro today. Like, I lost to the card Goose specifically. Yeah.
That's an OG. All right, next one is from Jameson. They said, I too, DGAF, give, like, that means they care about they don't care, actually. Sorry, it's the opposite of that. They don't care about Conquest anymore. I used to try to at least get the special card that was available because of FOMO, but I rarely even use the variant, so I stopped last season. What could they do to make Conquest better? Add visible rankings like ladder, actual unique rewards per season, or something? ?
I think they just need to figure out who it's for, right? Like, who is this mode for? And I think their answer has been a little bit muddled, because when it first came out, it was the competitive mode because they didn't have bots in it. And so that gave it a connotation that it probably shouldn't have, right? And what Conquest, but like also the fact that it takes longer, that it seems more competitive, right? Like that makes it people feel like it's a different thing, but it's not really a different thing, right? All the best players are on ladder. We all know it, right? And so it's in a place where it doesn't really have an identity. Who is Conquest for? It's for someone who has 20 minutes to play a game and cares enough to do that, but also isn't invested in climbing ladder. And it's like, that's a very small portion of people. And I think that's the major issue that Conquest has, if it has one, is simply a lack of identity, a lack of reason to be. Because this is a mode that looks like the competitive mode, but all the best players look at it and they're just like, why would I spend my time, just waiting until I, win against 5 people who aren't as good as me, right? Why would I spend an hour and a half doing that when I could just play the people who are as good as me?
Yeah, and there's virtually 0 rewards. I mean, the rewards, they don't feel good. Like, there's the one variant, and sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not. I mean, it's a static choice. But, yeah, the whole loop there just doesn't incentivize, I don't know, much of anybody to play it outside of them just enjoying the mode for the sake of enjoying it, which seems like that's why you play games. But believe it or not, I think most people don't play games for fun, or at least a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are on the panel here. So
the panel, we're a panel. I think you need more than 2 people to be a panel.
Let us know in the comments below if a panel is more than 2 people.
It's my favorite panel podcast.
Yeah, the whole end game loop there just doesn't make any sense with Conquest. I think that they don't. I kind of disagree with you. I don't think they want Conquest to be like they don't need to find a player that fits the mode. I think they kind of want it to be a mode for everybody. They just don't have a way to incentivize people. Because I would be surprised. I think that the Marvel Snap team would look at Conquest as I'm assuming as like a pretty big failure because it's fallen off so much.
I would guess
they could always bring
no
it
idea,
back. Yeah, they could always bring it back in some way. But what I'm really trying to take from that is I can imagine that where Conquest is right now was not their vision for Conquest, to say the least. So for me, what would get me to play Conquest? It's funny because I say rewards, but there are rewards. They just aren't that cool, I don't think. And they definitely don't warrant my time there, at least not relevant time. I would rather just go proving ground, slam through it, do that kind of stuff. Infinity Border, I think that's a huge miss. Like I think it was from the start. Like I criticized it, where I thought like there should be some sort of progressive system here. You don't just want the same border on like a new, like it's like whatever. You get your one, you've beaten an Infinity Conquest, you kind of get that title, you get that chip on your shoulder or whatever, and you're done with it. Like some people maybe got more, but other than that, like, yeah, there's no reason to repeat the content. And for competitive integrity, because Conquest is the competitive mode. Like if you have a tournament, you play Conquest, but all the best players are on ladder because that's where the number next to your name is. Exactly. That's where you have MMR.
Is. So you're playing good people, right? Like this is one of the things that gets me, because like sometimes I think the only utility Conquest has is to allow streamers to be like, here is like not necessarily streamers even. It's like it's to give a success. Like one of the things I talk about is I want ladder rewards to be relative to you, where it's like you went plus 500. Right. And Conquest is kind of doing that. And I think it should probably get credit as that, where it's like, if you can succeed in here, there is no whale with an overpowered deck that is going to beat your ass out of Conquest the way it is if you're like low CL and you try to climb a ladder. Probably. Right. Like I do wonder about it, though, because like I think it's good to give people more avenues to success than just super try hard, sweaty, watch KM Best, watch Lambie series, watch Yo Woody, watch Tanjo, watch like and copy everything, stay on top of everything and play a bunch. Like other people need wins, too. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. No, I mean, we've talked about like what is the sort of largest contributing factor to having fun in a card game? It's fucking winning.
Yeah. Yes. You need other ways to be like to win. You need other wins. You need personal ways to win. And it doesn't matter necessarily if those wins do not hold up in terms of being, you know, if someone came to me and was like, hey, I got an Infinity Border with this, I'd be like, that doesn't mean shit to me. That's not relevant to anything. It's not a thing. Right. But it's a win they can have. And I don't even say that to like because I want to take that away from them. I'm just like, you know, the Infinity Border does not tell me anything about the actual quality of the deck you were playing in any sense of the word, right? And a high ranking on ladder would be far more meaningful. And it's frustrating to me to deal with these conversations because like that is the truth.
Wait,
and
is that a real conversation? Does that happen?
Yeah, people are like, hey, KM, you should play my deck. I got an Infinity Border with it. And it's like, I don't want to dream crush you, dude, but that doesn't mean anything to me.
I could see.
Like, I don't want, like, it puts me in an awkward situation, basically. Because it's like, I don't want to be like, you know, your achievement is meaningless, because it's not, and it shouldn't be. It's a cool, and I'm happy for you, and all of that. But that, I can't just go off that as a gauge for power, you know? I can't trust that. There's not enough competitive integrity in the format for me to trust that what's happening is that you're playing a good deck. You know, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I would be incorrect to do it.
Mm-hmm. So what could they actually do for Conquest? Like what would get KM Best to play Conquest? Yeah, I mean, you're obviously an outlier, a massive outlier. But what would get you?
I think
to play
the honest
Conquest?
answer is, like, me specifically, I care so much about fast games that it's very hard for me to play Conquest.
Yeah, but if they, let's say, okay, I know they could do something, right? Like I could throw out a hyperbolic example and say they take ladder off of best of 1 queue and they throw it on Conquest. Like you're gonna play Conquest.
Yeah, like fuck, Jesus, would I even?
Dude,
Like,
you would, of course you would.
I gotta tell you, I truly dislike the mode.
Mhm.
The utility for me was always no bots, so I could actually play stuff, right?
Mhm.
I truly dislike the mode. I don't like spending that much time in a goddamn game. I don't like the way it incentivizes you to snap and play. I don't like anything about it.
Mhm.
It is not my bag. And that is not to say like, oh, I hate it. I just, like, when I say I don't like it, I mean I don't like it.
Mhm.
Don't like, not the same thing as hate. It just does nothing for me. And that is fine, I guess, but I would be annoyed. I would be actively angry if the game forced me to play the mode, is sort of what I'm getting at here. So when you're talking about like what could they do to get me to play the mode, I would be angry if I was forced to play.
It's important. It's important to discuss like what could bring you back, because they're gonna come out with another mode, and if that mode just follows the same life cycle as Conquest, then they're probably gonna stop coming out with modes. I would assume if they all flop, they're probably not a great investment of time. So how do they actually motivate players to play these modes? Because they obviously
have
done
no idea.
poorly. Yeah.
Like here's my whole thing with Marvel Snap is, the one thing everyone agrees on is the gameplay is fucking awesome. That's the one thing every single person agrees on is, damn, this is so cool. It's great gameplay. And then everything that they don't like is card acquisition, monetization, the way in which cosmetics are done, the way in which everything that isn't the gameplay is done. And so they make these modes, and the modes are all like, let's change the one thing about this game that everyone likes. Let's change the one thing about this game that everyone agrees is baller. And it's like, why?
But they also changed the other side. Like they just gave us buy the fucking border thing. Like they did that.
Sure. But like, I just don't understand why people even ask for new modes. Like, I honestly think that people asking for new modes are just like, I'm gonna get killed for this.
No, don't
here's my cope take. Here's my take. People asking for new modes don't like the game and haven't come to terms with that yet. They think they're just bored.
So I think that some part of asking for new modes is maybe rooted in not actually understanding your own psychology as a player. Because prior to Conquest, I would have liked Conquest to come out. I was super excited for Conquest. I was like, fuck these bots, fuck this ladder, this shit. And it was different than it is now, but it sucked. And I was like, Conquest is going to change this game. And then Conquest came out, and I was like, oh, dude, I gotta play 5 of these fucking things. Like, oh my god, my god. And then I got the border, and I was like, why would I ever do that again? I'm practicing for a tournament. Okay, then I'll play it. But guess what? There's no tournaments. So, yeah, I don't know. Basically, I think that our answer to this is we don't have an answer, but they got to figure it out for whatever else they come out with, like whatever the next mode is. I hope.
Yeah, like I feel like. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I feel like people get mad about modes as a proxy for being mad about other stuff. Like they're like, oh, there's nothing to do in this game. And what they really mean is, I can't afford the new cards.
Bro, I actually do think there's like nothing to do if you're not a ladder grinder. I understand. So the thing is like there's a huge disconnect. Okay, so there's a disconnect between me and people who play games for pure fun. Because that is just not, it's not me. It never has been me. I swear to God, I wish it was me. And I've tried to do that, but I understand myself at this point that is not what motivates me. And I do think that in Marvel Snap that I feel like if I'm not pushing for, whether it's getting infinite for the season, whether it's hitting some arbitrary number on the leaderboard, I'm just like, dude, there's no reason. Like, why would I queue up this game? Like, for me, the motivation now is SP. Like, it is the leaderboard. It is the post infinite, 100%.
Interesting.
And when I'm not motivated by that, there's nothing to do.
That makes sense to me, but I don't know. Everyone hearing this, if you think I'm being unfair, tell me what it is that you want to be doing in this game. Like, I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. Because it's like, everyone's like, oh, there's nothing to do. And it's like, would you guys play a duos mode? Like, I think most of what people ask for out of modes fundamentally is that the modes are a shortcut way of asking for card acquisition to be different. Like, oh, let me play draft mode. give me a mode where I don't have to pay for shit. And it's like, well, your problem isn't game modes. Your problem is the monetization then. And it almost feels like it's sort of like sending them off in the wrong direction, where like Second Dinner goes down and hunts it out a mode, and what really people want is just game cheaper.
Yeah, draft for me breaks that mold a bit because draft is like a very anti-meta format. So like metas tend to coalesce between, some amount of top decks, whether it's myopic in nature, it's like a one deck dominated format, or it's a rock, paper, scissors format, or let's say it's, even 5+. Those, for some players, those do feel stale. For me, usually that's what I like. I like being able to be like, okay, here's the metagame. I can pick a deck. If X is represented more, I can pick a different deck. I usually like that and keep me stimulated for a long time. But I think a lot of people come to a card game, they enjoy the variability, like the deck building aspect, like people have different decks, unique collections. Like that's a real thing. People actually enjoy that. But then they end up playing the metagame and they're like, okay, it's not that. I think draft is very anti-meta, right? Where it's like, okay, I can have this somewhat refreshing new experience, or, seemingly new experience, because let's be real, if you've played any draft format, any high-level draft format, like something like Magic, there's a meta. There is definitely a meta. So, for me, draft is a bit different because of that.
Yeah, draft is a thing where it's like, I wish that the monetization was set up in such a way that it was allowable. But I feel like because of that, it is not.
Well, maybe I need to revamp the monetization. No, I'm kidding.
Who can say?
Next one is from Buckles. Ben and Snap, what deck archetype from another TCG that doesn't exist in Snap would you like to see added?
I wouldn't necessarily like to see it added, because I don't think there's a way to make it make sense. But like blue-red tempo from Magic, like a Delver deck where it's like get your thing down early and then like counterspell their shit, and that kind of shit I would enjoy if it were in this game. But I got a simpler answer for you. How about fucking aggro? Like an aggro
how about
deck?
not aggro? No.
How about let me play Lightning Bolt somehow? I haven't really figured out how, but how about give me Lightning Bolt?
Yeah, so my answers are pretty much the same as Kim's, but actually opposite. So like Mono Red Prison, Tainted Pact, Thassa's Oracle, like Doomsday.
Galactus exists.
Galactus used to exist. It is a shadow of its former self. I loved Galactus. Honestly, there's you guys know this by now. There's a deck in Flesh and Blood called Kano. I would love for that deck to exist. Holy dude, by the way, gotta update you on the Flesh and Blood metagame. Basically, there was this cabal of wizard players, and Kano is a wizard. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a history. So not you, but people who haven't heard this before. Kano is a wizard in Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is a game where you play in combat.
Really?
But the wizard doesn't play in combat. Does magical damage, and it surpasses like the normal blocking procedures of the game. Because of that, it's very underpowered. It's underrated. But they may have included some combo cards. So what people are doing now in Flesh and Blood, they are now completely stacking the entire deck. So they are blocking out the entire game, stacking the entire deck, and then they are drawing their entire deck and banishing all their combo cards like in a single turn and doing like hundreds of damage.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like awesome. Every combo deck ever.
Yeah, but it's an interesting combo deck because you have to actually order the deck perfectly correctly for probably what is a sequence of at least over 10 cards. I would say most of the time. It could be less, but
is there any way for your opponent to interact with that and make your ordering wrong, or is it just deterministic?
Well, it could be deterministic. The problem is like when you draw the cards on the first cycle, it is random which you get them. So let's say you got 3 of your combo pieces in your 4-card hand. Well, you can't pitch all of those. You can't all because you're blocking out. You're trying to get to the end, so that could mess you up. So it is not deterministic, but can your opponent do anything to stop you from putting those cards on the bottom of your deck? Well, they have to apply pressure, so you have to block with those cards,
right? Okay,
or make a discard.
So, but like, can they do anything to make a decision you have made previously an incorrect one? Is there a way for your opponent to be like, I think he ordered it like this, therefore I will make this play? It's
called counter pitch stacking. So, as your opponent stacks their deck, you can also stack your deck, assuming you're both on 60 cards and are accelerating at the same rate. By which case you are not, because Kano draws a lot more cards, so you're accelerating much faster. So, theoretically, yes. In practice, virtually no.
That sounds sucky, I'm not going to lie.
It's pretty awesome. So I saw a screenshot today. I was very stimulated. There was like I saw literally. So the pitch zone usually has a single card in it, paying resources. I saw actually over 15 cards, and that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Anyway, we were talking about archetypes. Yeah, I'd love to see that in Marvel Snap. Absolutely could not happen. But I think that zooming out and being more serious, more combo-y decks that actually manipulate the deck in some form, in some kind of way, and aren't just like this kind of draw 2 cards combo. We've talked about the issues with English language and the word fucking combo and how it doesn't describe anything relevant. But yeah, Kano. I'd like to see Kano in this game.
I think combos of that nature are impossible in Snap because they're all just like draw your deck combos, and card draw is not real in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been things that have been, there's nothing been close to Kano, but there have been combo-ish decks or combo decks that I kind of enjoyed in Snap. But for instance, like something I really don't enjoy is something like Cerebro, where it's like, play my things that are relevant to Cerebro's text, play Cerebro combo. It's like, okay, that's not combo.
Well, it's not. No one's called Cerebro a combo deck.
Some people do.
No, they do not.
Some people definitely.
That's not a thing.
It's like an arc. Yeah, I guess it's like a. What is it like?
People call Cerebro, but if you're getting real, it's just it's like a points end interaction.
Yeah,
it's one of those interaction.
Right? Yeah. So the dichotomy between Cam and I came with like all the fast decks, somewhat interactive. Blue Red Tempo is interactive. It is very permission based, so it's stopping your opponent from having fun. But I would like all the non-interactive, which is never going to happen. But that's okay. That's okay.
I mean, I don't think mine's ever going to happen either. I just like it's a play style I enjoy where it's like fast and furious 7. No, it's just like I enjoy faster, more interactive games where both players are involved in them, right? And so obviously like having a deck like that's like more my speed in terms of how I enjoy playing card games.
Yeah. I still haven't figured out what's psychologically wrong with me that the decks I enjoy the most in card games are the solitaire based, like non-interactive decks. Because that's kind of weird, right? Like that is a bizarre thing.
I'm not going to psychoanalyze you about it. I could do it if you want. If you want me to psychoanalyze you based on your deck choice, I can do it. But I don't think it's like meaningful in any way. It would just be a gag.
Yeah. I just think it's...
For the record, I think what it is you like feeling power.
Maybe.
If we're going to psychoanalyze you, I think you like knowing that you're going to win and knowing that is locked in and your opponent can't do anything about it. And more importantly, knowing that you earned it.
I do think that is probably pretty correct, actually. You said it would be a gag, but I think that's decently accurate. I think a lot of it comes down to why do you play a card game? For me, it is what I figured out, like, because I don't like single player card games. I don't like whatever the fuck that card game is. You know what I'm talking about, the dungeon one.
Balatro?
I mean, any of them. Balatro's kind
Slay
of
the Spire.
Yeah, Slay the Spire. I don't like it, and I think they're good games. But the reason I play card games is simply to beat my opponent. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else. Nothing else. And that's the only thing you can take from the essence of a 1v1 card game that is left after you strip away what is not in all these other games that I don't enjoy. So yeah, I think that's it. I want to feel powerful.
Keep in mind, the main card game this man plays involves cards like Scar and Medusa from Disney. He's out here talking like a killer, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sacrifice Nala here to get more energy, to get more mana."
Yo, that game is actually really, really good. It's crazy because I don't know. It's a paper TCG, and the meta is very, very, very dynamic, and it's actually a really good game. It's really good. Surprisingly, I thought the game would suck. I really did think it was gonna suck. All right, next one.
How much of it? Okay, no. Here's a question though. How much of you being like, "Oh, it's a really good game," is the MTG Arena like smiley face, frowny face screen? Because you're just like, how many playmats do you have behind you again? How many? What are we talking about?
I only have 3 because I sold one.
Nice, realizing those gains.
I'm sure a lot of it is being on the winning a lot. That's one, but also being on the cutting edge of information. Like pretty much all the people I surround myself with are the better players in the game. So you just feel very, very far ahead. You feel very good. But one thing I can't sort of dismiss is that sets release every 3 months, and during those 3 months, the metagame is actually constantly shifting. And it is like, for me, because there's no sideboarding in that game, and because the way the resource system works, every time you bring a deck to a tournament, there is actually no best 60. Like, there's no best deck. Mm-hmm. It is simply a meta call, and from there, it is the variance of how you match up into your opponents. So it is really stimulating because of that. And we genuinely, and this is like, I mean, you don't have to look at me. We can talk about Moyen, who's one of the best Marvel Snap players to ever exist. Like, we are actually building decks for the entirety of the set for the whole 3 months, which is crazy. So it's stimulating because of that. But that deck, they do have aggro decks in that game. Sometimes they're bullshit, and it does piss me off. All right. Next one. Gunny says, Ben and Snap, I've heard the spectator mode fixes competitive snap. Can you explain how?
I don't think it like fixes competitive snap. It just means that you can do things again. Like, one of the things that I think, like, I'm not saying it would save anything. I'm not even sure it would do anything. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, people that say stuff like that, I think are a little bit hopey of me, right? But what I can tell you is it wouldn't fucking hurt. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to run a Marvel Snap tournament before, but a lot of what happens, I even have a copy paste command in my chat for it, is someone will be playing on mobile, so the resolution will be dog shit. How do you get the game to be a broadcastable sport? And spectator mode just allows the community to run with that in a real way. And there are so many people who are dying for that to happen. They want that to happen. They need that to happen. That's what they want to be branded around, is that. And right now, it is so much less watchable because of that. Unless you can guarantee that everyone who is doing it will stream you their gameplay, which requires no one to be on mobile, which requires no one to be in other countries that have bad internet connections. Mm-hmm. Like, there are significant gates on it right now that would be removed. Now, do I think that would make Marvel Snap have a competitive scene immediately? No, not really. I've run a tournament. I lost money on that shit. That's how it goes, right? But I think that it would certainly help.
Mm. Yeah, the viewer experiences in general, it's bad. Even for like the biggest budget tournaments, it's pretty rough. Like
they all have to work around it, and it sucks.
Yeah, and usually they don't work around it very well. And I don't mean to throw shade at anybody, but most of the broadcasts that I've watched for Marvel Snap have been riddled with issues from exactly that, the lack of spectator mode. It's been very apparent, and I think if you weren't very entrenched in Marvel Snap, it'd be hard to watch. Speaking of, I did randomly tune in to a Pokemon TCG regional stream, and holy shit, the production quality is insane, dude. It's insane. I heard it's even crazier for like the Japanese versions of that, but they had like the weatherman stuff. They were like drawing on it, and it was nuts. I'm just surprised. There was only 400 people watching it, so it wasn't very successful, but it was very well done. Next one is from Timothy. Would you say that the current healthcare design is incompatible with monetization?
Yes.
I thought that was fucking hilarious. Next one is from Conrad. Question for the next pod. I'm one of the few who primarily plays Conquest. We found that person. I've hit Infinite every season since Zombie season, usually do it in about 3 to 4 days. Once I hit Infinite, I solely play Conquest. Since Conquest released, I've beaten the Infinite Conquest every season, have 14 Infinite borders. My question is, I feel like I'm a fairly decent player, but will the bigger challenge come from grinding the ladder? I've never had any desire to grind the ladder after Infinite, but I'm curious if I'm really putting my skills to the test. Thanks for what you guys do and keep it up. So I think you actually answered that one. I already
answered this one. I'm sorry, man. You are not really putting your skills to the test. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I do think that
you have more. Let me put it this way. You're listening to my podcast. You have more Infinite Avatar borders than I do.
Yep. True.
So
me too. Probably us combined, actually. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of people out there that would debate on this one. Conquest is like fundamentally from its structure, it does seem like a higher competitive integrity mode, lower variance mode, but can't get away from it. Best players are on ladder, period.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when Lambie would post like screenshots of his Conquest rate, and I'd be like, "What are you doing, man?" And I was like, "You can't play this. You have to come over and play ladder." And then he came over and played ladder, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you're right." It was like you can't do that, man.
All right, next one, Theo. Question for next week: if you could rework one card, which one would it be and how, especially if it also makes the effect feel more true to the character? Example, Spider-Man's rework.
I feel like that's a question that needs research. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it needs a lot of research. That's not the kind of thing I'm just equipped to answer. I'd have to look at a list of cards and like figure it out from there.
I would have to know what Marvel characters do.
Deeper research than I even would require. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That actually used to be a big pain point in the early days of the pod when people like sniffed out that we weren't the biggest Marvel fans, not Marvel Snap.
Really?
Yeah, they were fucking pissed.
Oh my God. I thought I was very open about that. The IP was a negative for me.
It has
since become a positive. I enjoy it more now because I like my association is now with comics instead of the MCU.
Not D-list movies. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, originally the IP was like, this is a negative. It's a good thing the game is good.
Same here. I actually didn't play it in the beta at one point because I was like, Marvel sucks. I relax if you heard that and you just had an aneurysm. It doesn't suck anymore. I've come more accustomed to it. I haven't read many comics, but I've come to realize that I was mistaken in believing that the movies represented the IP. Because I mean, maybe you're here and you listen to those movies, and I'll take the L. You can. I think most of them suck. Whatever. All right, next one, Mitchell. Ben and Snap. What's the most broken card that got nerfed that you think could be reverted without completely breaking the game? The line in my head is Werewolf, but also my desire to play Thor/High Evo deck coming through.
I think you could revert High Evo's nerf, yeah. I think you could revert Werewolf's nerf, yeah. I think, let's see, of the recent cards that got nerfed without completely breaking the game, I guess it sort of depends on your definition of breaking the game, right? Because if you reverted Annihilus's nerf, it wouldn't actually be all that different. It would just be like 1 power stronger, and that 0 stuff probably wouldn't matter too much. We can tell that from it already being an incredibly good card right now. But like if you did that, it would probably have like a 56% win rate, and that would be like really good, right? Like what is like the line between really good and ubiquitous and busted is kind of hard for me to gauge, right? I don't know. I think maybe if I had to pick one, I would say Miss Marvel, because right now there's just a pretty excessive amount of clog. Mm-hmm. And so there are like some reasonable taxes there. The issue is that like with clog stuff, you're sending over 4s, you're sending over 1s. As long as you avoid playing those, you're probably going to be fine. But if I had to name like a previously nerfed card, I would consider Miss Marvel, if only for current metagame context. I assume she would end up broken at some other point, though, right? Like it's just kind of inevitable when you have those numbers on that card at that ease of use.
Yeah. I mean, come on, let's be real. For me, it's Galactus, but
get out of here!
No, I don't think it would break the game, bro. I just think it would piss some people off. Like,
oh my God!
And those people can relax. You know, other people can have fun playing the game too.
Oh, potatoes. God, that's the whole point. Other people can't have fun playing the game if you fucking Galactus them. No, that card sucks. It should have never been released.
Beautiful card. Great card design. All right. Next one is from Mr. Noob. I think the reason online communities are default negative is because when someone enjoys something, they just go and play it. But if they don't like it, they go complain online. I just didn't think about that. That's kind of funny.
Right? Like, I think there's a level of investment to online communities that complain a lot that sort of makes it kind of funny, right? Where it's like, this is the thing you spend like 4 hours a day doing. All you do is complain about it while you're doing it. There is like a degree of humor there, right? But I think it's a little bit different in a game like this because it's hard for me to say this because I don't know how true it is, but it does feel like a lot of the people that complain about this are not engaging with the reality of what is required to run a game like this, or would simply be happier playing a different game. Does that make sense?
Like it feels like you
playing a different game.
Okay.
It feels like there are people who it almost feels like they build a prison around themselves because they're like, man, I love this gameplay, but they can't be happy until, you know, they either spend a bunch of money or quit, I think. And I think that sort of sucks because I think that the way Marvel Snap is set up, it feels like you can play the greatest game in the world, but then the price tag on it is just simply too much for people to stomach. And that naturally makes someone feel angry because you have it in your hands. You can do it. but it is so offensive that they would ask this amount of you that you just are angry about it.
Yeah. It's kind of a tangent, but I recently saw a post from Lambie where he posted a picture of a deck that resembled Bounce, or was a version of Bounce, and he posts a picture of his trophy from the Creator Clash in the UK where he won. He was like, "Oh, it's crazy to think that a year ago we were winning the Creator Clash in the UK." And I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, my vision for Marvel Snap was so different back then. Like where I thought the game could go, should go, or where I wanted it to go was not where we ended up. Not to say that there's no redeemable quality here, but I really thought Marvel Snap had the potential to be one of the better competitive, and I mean, when I say competitive, I do mean tournament-based competitive games out there. And I was, honestly, for me, as someone who invested a lot of time into it, from that perspective from the beginning, I was let down a lot by where we ended up. And it doesn't necessarily ruin my experience, but it was just weird seeing that post and reflecting about it. I was like, I was so high on this game and this game's future back then. And like I said, doesn't mean it doesn't have a future, but I think the future that I was looking towards at that time, I do think that is not going to happen.
That's the specific thing, right? Like you talk about competitive and they're like, why would we want that?
Yeah.
Like if you go to their marketing team and you ask them what their keywords are for marketing this game, none of it is competitive. Mm-hmm. None of it. They do not want to be associated with that. They want you to think like all their marketing is like, you know, those other try hard ass card games where like some dude will drop $750 on you and beat your fucking shit in. We are not like that. You know, those other try hard ass card games where like you're surrounded by sweaty nerds who smell bad and show their butt cracks. We are not like that. Like that is almost entirely every Marvel Snap ad I've seen is something like that, where it's like, we are not a competitive card game. Come here and have fun.
Yeah.
And it's just weird, I just think that like even if they could do all the things the competitive community wants from them, I don't think they want that to be their thing.
Yeah, there's one more. This is from The Gamer. He said, "This movie is so boring." Main topic. Card power evaluations for May. It is May.
What movie do you think he was talking about? Like Us?
Yeah.
Or do you think he was talking about like Dune?
Us. Huh. It's a joke. Kind of. Could be serious as well.
I can't tell. Like, it's hard to tell if he's like making a joke or just like is a guy on YouTube.
Either one is fine. It amused me when I read it. I was just like, what the fuck is this?
Sure.
First one, the season pass card. Blink.
Wait, I'm gonna hold on. Wait, this is my favorite boring movie podcast. All right.
Oh my god, the amount of this is my favorite dog shit podcast was. It was
our editor called that out. Our editor was like, you know, you're going to get like 50 comments that say this is my favorite dog shit podcast, right? And I was like, not really.
Yeah. That just reminded me of that meme where there's a dude in space and there's a guy behind him. And it's like always has been. I was like, this guy has clearly never read our comments because, it's always like that. It's always like that. It's like, that's not new.
That's normal. Yeah.
First one is Blink 5/6 on reveal. Swap the last card.
5/7.
5/7. They switched it again. Ugh.
Dev video, yeah.
Swapping over to Snap Fan after this, bro. I'm done. Blink 5/7 on reveal. Swap the last card you played with a higher cost card from your deck.
I mean, I guess it could be still a 5/6 and the dev video is wrong. Like, I don't know. That's happened before too. We'll find out.
No, I got this from a source that is usually behind, or at least it has been. I think it was last time. That was like the first time.
Yeah. But yeah, 5/7. This card's really fascinating to me because I think like it reminds me of how I was evaluating Red Hulk, right? Which is like there are gradations of where this goes. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was like how I was evaluating Corvus Glaive. This is something I do a lot in terms of when I look at new cards. So level 1 of this card is it probably goes in Hela, right? Mm-hmm. And it definitely goes in Electro. So we start with it definitely goes in Electro stuff. Mm-hmm. And then level 2 is this meaningfully upgrading Hela? And then level 3 is, what if we just play this in kind of everything, right? What if we play Blink Jubilee and just kind of everything and be like, that's just good. We just do good stuff with Blink Jubilee, right? We could do that, I think. And then that is sort of like the 3 levels that I think it can get to. I think it's somewhere between 2 and 3, honestly. I'm interested to figure out where else it shows up.
Cool card. I don't know why I was kind of tangenting in my brain, but I was just thinking about this as like an ongoing effect and like a birthing pod effect. That's a Magic reference, by the way. But I do think that you're right. Like, it does seem inherently powerful. Like, I mean, how bad is the 5/7 rate?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yes. We come back to the math of the card once again. How bad is it? How bad is it?
What do you mean?
Like, how good does the payoff need to be for playing a 5/7?
I think it sort of depends on like the specifics of it, right? Because like there's worlds in which you're sitting there looking at your deck tracker and you're like, I know this is getting a Shang-Chi.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, that's really strong in that world. When you know what it's getting and your opponent doesn't know what it's getting, and like that's like a whole information asymmetry thing. There are people in my comments pitching play, M'Baku in this. I think that's probably ass. But I think that just sort of playing this card and turning your 2-drop into a 5, because you know what it's going to hit, is pretty good. I am interested to see if we can get this to be a like mid-range good stuff card. Because like just baseline, Jubilee into this is just like, that's probably pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good. What's the vanilla value or vanilla power for a 5 cost?
9.
So you're 2 off. So you need to get it. I mean, and we're not playing vanilla characters in our decks, but
correct.
2+
like
value.
Keep in mind the comparisons here for 5 drops. Mm-hmm. Annihilus, Professor X, Cannonball. By and large, either lane or game winning cards. So there is a lot of competition for Blink. Don't get me wrong. And I think like the fact that the competition is that fierce is notable. But I am still interested.
Okay. The card that releases on the same day. Nocturne. 3/5. You can move this once. When this moves, replace this location with a random new one.
I'm really afraid they just like made Jeff 2. Legitimately.
Yo, actually looks pretty good. It does.
Like, I look at this card and I'm like, okay, well, you know what cards have been playable basically always? Jeff and Vision.
Yeah. And Vision less so than Jeff. Like Jeff. Like Jeff has been the quintessential 2-draw for so long.
Right. And I don't think this is that much better. I think that Jeff's ability is significantly better than this card's ability, right?
Yeah.
But 5 power moving around is so different than 3 power moving around.
That's true. Yeah.
Like 5 power moving around is like, oh my God, that's really scary. And oh, by the way, it can blow up like the Nexus or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot with this card where it's like, if you need a 3, you're probably going to play it. And it's probably going to be fine to good. It goes in every deck with Angela, which is a lot of decks. Like I will say the competitive advantage Jeff has is not just a better ability, but costing 2. Like that is a meaningful jump to 3. And I think that this is a card that to me is clearly worse than Jeff. But the fact that I have to have that conversation freaks me out. Like the fact that I've got to be like, are we sure this isn't Jeff?
What do you
Whew.
What is the most powerful Marvel Snap card agnostic of context, like deck context in the game, you think?
I don't think that's a fair question because you'd want to say something like Hella, right? Like agnostic of deck context.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's something like Jeff. Like Jeff is just so powerful, so ubiquitous. Like, I mean, it is just such a good card in Snap.
Jeff's great.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this card is going to be busted, to be honest. I really do. Next one is Sage. 3/0 on reveal, +2 power for each different power among all other cards here.
I do not understand this card, and I am afraid that it's going to end up being really good.
Okay. How though?
I don't. How? Because that's like a 3/12.
On reveal, +2 power for each different power among all cards here. So all cards at this location. I mean, you're playing it on 3. It's a base 3/0.
You're never playing it on 3. You're always playing it on 6.
On 6. Okay. So with another 3. Interesting. I mean, potentially for each differing power.
Yeah. This card feels like doing math. Like, she looks like a nerd, so I don't know if that was on purpose. But if it is, tip my cap. You did good on the flavor here. Also, flavor Nocturne thing. We can't not talk about Nocturne without talking about the flavor. Nocturne is the child of Scarlet Witch and Nightcrawler. Her stats are Scarlet Witch and Nightcrawler's stats combined. Her ability is Scarlet Witch and Nightcrawler's ability combined. Great job. Proud of you.
Potentially. That'd be funny if they go for a big flavor win, but then, create.
It ends up being super busted.
Yeah, busted.
I don't know. Like, it won't be like the kind of busted people hate, though. You know what I mean? Like, no one hates Jeff.
3-5 moving around. It's
no
also
one
changing.
Fucking hates Jeff. It's like they don't hate it. Everyone loves Jeff. Everyone loves him.
Everyone does love Jeff, but this is also changing the location.
I think if anything, that'll make it feel worse for you. Like, you'll win games off your opponent getting like the wrong location, or you'll lose games off of your Nocturne rolling like negative zone and you die. Like, I think that'll actually make people afraid to play this card.
Mm-hmm.
I think people will read that as a downside.
Really?
Interesting. I do. I think people will read that as a downside, or at least in their play, do what they can to mitigate the variance by saying, do I have to move this? And I think that sort of impacts her, because there's no cost for moving Jeff, but there is a potential cost for moving that Nocturne.
All right, so Sage. It's like,
I don't know, dude.
Gun to your head. You got to be like busted or not busted.
Not busted.
Not busted. Okay. Next one. How do you say this name? Oh my God.
Which one?
I mean, it looks like Namore. I mean, if I was gonna like, if I was,
Namora.
don't you fucking? How
do I say this name?
How is it an A? That's just an E. I typed it wrong.
That's an A.
Typed it wrong, bro. I was just thinking about that song,
when the moon hits your
that song. Polare.
That's Namore.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. All right.
Yeah, no, they literally just put an A after Namor's name, and you're just like, how the fuck do I pronounce that?
Oh my God. Namore.
This card's kind of cool.
All right, I got to read it out from 5/5 on reveal. Give +5 power to each.
5/6 in the dev video.
All right. 5/6 on reveal. Give +5 power to each of your cards alone at another location.
I don't think this card, I think it's going to be too fragile to be legitimately good.
Okay.
But consider the following. Turn 1 pass, turn 2 Jeff, turn 3 Nocturne. Those are going to be in the 2 side lanes, right?
Okay.
Turn 4, Miss Marvel. Turn 5, Nomura. Turn 6, Doctor Doom. Like,
yes.
That's a bunch of points, dude. Like,
that's Namore.
That's Namore. That's just a bunch of points. Like, yes, you get completely shit canned by debris. You get completely obliterated by Clog. But, like, look, that is a ton of fucking points. That is so many points. That is an excessive amount.
Mm-hmm. All right. Last one, Sasquatch 610 costs 1 less for each card you played last turn.
Yeah, this card's fucked, I think. Like, it looks like it's supposed to be a bounce card, because, like, here's my theory about how this card got made. They were like, let's do a bounce card, right? We gotta do a bounce card. And so they made it, and they're like, okay, we've gotten her to a point where she's not busted in bounce. And I think she's probably not busted in bounce, because how do you design a card for bounce? What you do is you say, all right, well, here's the question. Are you going to play Mysterio on turn 5 or on turn 6? So we're going to tax it that way, right? Here's the thing. It turns out you can just play Mysterio on turn 2 in pretty much any Mockingbird deck, and this just goes in that. There are some potential issues I foresee with this card where it's just like, you have given the Mockingbird Mysterio decks a 3/10. I would advise not giving the Mockingbird Mysterio decks a 3/10. That seems bad, like a bad idea, actually.
That does seem busted. Okay. All right. So rating the whole month. Where would you put the whole month?
I don't know.
Just
like,
send it. Just
no, but like, do you have like what's the scale? Do I judge it against the months previous, or do I judge it against what every other month since? Like, because like here's the thing. We've talked about this. I think these last fucking since February, this shit has been bonkers. Like, every card is like an 8 out of 10. Every card is just really damn good. And, you know, what are you going to do? Ask them, not even necessarily really damn good, like, because there are cards that are bad that people think are good, like War Machine, right? But like, you go through that, right? And it's like, is this better than the Black Order month? Remember when Black Order came out and people were like, you know, that's a pretty mid month. Fucking Corvus Glaive and Proxima Midnight and Cull Obsidian. That's a mid-month.
Yeah, I think it was because like the season pass card, like what Black Swan, right? Like it didn't.
Yeah, but it's just like that's crazy. And then March was obviously very strong.
Yeah, I can't forget.
And then April has obviously been very strong. But like, it's not like they've all been super busted or anything. They've just been like good. You know what I mean? And that is a weird spot to put people in because it's like so many Marvel Snap decks are collections of good cards.
Yep.
And when so many of the good cards are recent, it's like it's not legitimately power creep necessarily, but it's like it's not power creep in the sense of this is now the new best card in the game. It's power creep in the sense of this is now the new 15th best card in the game. This is now the new 10th best card in the game. And since it's the new 10th best card in the game, you're now throwing by putting something that isn't this card in your decks. And that's something that I think is super, super odd. Anyway, I said all this to get out of actually rating the month. Yes, so hopefully I accomplished that.
Does it fall? Do you think it falls in that category with a bunch of 8 out of 10s?
Yeah. I mean, I think the cards in here range from like 6 out of 10 to 8 to like 9 out of 10 probably.
So they'll all be buys, you think?
No,
it's not fair. It's not fair.
Like that's the thing. They're not all buys because you have to judge them by the context of themselves, right? If everything is an 8 out of 10, nothing is.
True. I do think there are some busted cards this week. I'm super excited. I'm actually excited for Nocturne. That seems fun.
Nocturne just seems like, oh boy, like that is I just enjoy that card. Yeah. That is just a card that looks good and probably is good.
Also, Blink. Like I think a lot of the interactions you talked about with Blink are really fun interactions. Where the information asymmetry. I mean, getting back to the psychoanalysis of why we play the decks we play. I do fancy myself a little bit of information asymmetry.
I would imagine you do. Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like at this point, it's like we've like deduced I'm like a sociopathic card game player. It's not like that.
You play card games to get the feeling of trapping people in your basement.
Jesus Christ. Bro, you ain't gonna find that name. Okay, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do the Drake reference.
You ain't gonna find the name Brendan on any list.
If you don't understand that reference, I can't help you. All right. If you listen to this podcast, you enjoy it. Number one thing you can do is leave us a review on ratethispodcast.com/snapshot and get to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more than the This Is My Favorite Dogshit Podcast comments, but they're actually pretty close because those are kind of funny. Video version of this on YouTube at youtube.com/@the_snapshot. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Brendan APG, KM Best MS. KM is streaming in the evenings now, sometimes 4 times a week, maybe 5 times a week.
Yeah, that's accurate. I have nothing to add to that.
Well, hire me, KM Best. Hire me.
I don't make enough money for that. Are you kidding me? I'm working for free right now.
True. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.